Hi, it's Bonnie with Sew Inspired by Bonnie with another Tuesday's tip. Today we're going to discuss how to successfully embroider towels and get all the design elements, even though they're different sizes, to look like they're in the same spot on different size towels and have everything balanced. So I'm going to go over to my computer and refresh it and make sure that we have some folks. And while we're waiting on that to show up, because I know there's about a 10-second lag between the Facebook Live and it's showing up on the computer. If you're here, go ahead and give me a shout out, say hi or some love or a like, and that way I will know that you're here. And you'll want to make sure and follow our page so that you'll get future notifications. Also, you might want to go ahead and sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already done so, and that way you'll get notifications of when the Tuesday's tips and their times and when they are coming out. So you can do that over at www.sewinspiredbybonnie.com. Okay, looks like, oh my goodness, Lisa says it's snowing where she's at. Oh, my husband's off flying. Fortunately, he's being able to stay away from the East Coast. I hear they're going to get hammered. So, yeah. Stay warm. I know it's cold. Oh, well, thank you, Lisa, for the compliment on the towels. They have been a very popular set. These are from our Elegant Embossed Alphabet. And it comes in 4 different sizes. I wanted you to have some versatility with them, whether it's a washcloth or a bath sheet, because I think they all need a different size. But I've even used this teeny tiny one on napkins, believe it or not. So you don't have to limit yourself only to napped fabric for the embossed alphabet. It's pretty versatile. Okay, it looks like folks are showing up. Oh my goodness, even from Australia. Hello. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I know when I was teaching at a dealership, a lot of people wanted to do towels so badly, but they were afraid of doing towels, and they had towels popping out of the hoop, or they just didn't know how to get all the different designs to look balanced within a set of towels. But here again is a set that I did using our Elegant Embossed Alphabet. You can see this. It does come in 2-tone colors, so that if you wanted to do a little different look and match up the circles to the binding, not binding, but the little band, if you have a colored band, you can do that, or you can just do it all one color. I chose to do my sample today in all one color, but let's go ahead and show you how I did that and made everything look balanced, because we want everything to look professional that we embroider. We don't want them to look, lovingly handmade, as I've heard some people refer them to them. Okay, so the first thing I did, and I have a little table off to the side, I'm sorry, but I'm working in a really small space, so I have to kind of improvise here. The first thing I do when I'm deciding on a design on my towels is I get out the towel, and this happens to be a hand towel, and I printed out a couple of different sizes. Now for me, this one is a little bit too big, a little bit overpowering for the hand towel for my preference, because by the time I folded it under, because I fold my towels in thirds when I hang them up, there wasn't a whole lot of towel left to wipe your hands on. Now if you were just going to use it for show only, that would be a different story. You might want a bigger size. Perfectly fine, just personal preference. I went ahead with the hand towel, and I kind of liked the look of the little bit smaller one, which was the 4x4, which is also the size that I used on this one. I used the 4x4 on this hand towel. Okay, so first thing I do on my templates, you may have noticed this, I put a little arrow, because my program in my software doesn't do this. Some of them do and some of them don't, but this particular program that I was using today didn't. I bounce in a few different programs. But anyway, it didn't put an arrow for the what's up. And I like to do that on my template. So as soon as it comes out of the printer, a lot of times I'll cut roughly around my template, because a big old square on here is kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of gets in the way for me. So I'll cut roughly around it, and then I draw a little arrow at the top. You see where the arrow is on both of these. Because I have been known in the past to accidentally get something upside down, especially something like this, where it could be an M or a W. So I like to do that as soon as I get it out of the printer while it's fresh in my mind, what I'm doing, and so I know which end is up. So now that I've decided that I'm going to do the 4x4 and not the 5x7, I just set the other little template aside. Now in a previous video that I did, so I've already decided 4x4 with my towel. Okay, I'm going to set that aside for a minute. In a previous video that I did, we discussed design placement. And in that video, I talked about how the center of your hoop might not really be the center, or what you think is the center might not really be the center of your hoop. This is a brother or baby lock hoop. They're interchangeable. And I know this could be true with other manufacturers, so I think it's a good idea just to double check. Take your template, make sure it's the right side up so that you can see the ABCs reading correctly, and then set it inside your inner hoop. Okay, I know I've got the stabilizer here and all, which is, you know, just don't worry about that. I haven't gotten to the stabilizer yet, but it makes it easier for you to see what's going on with the template. On the template, you'll see that the center line is not exactly centered over that notch at the top or the bottom. So my vertical center on the Baby Lock Brother hoops for this 5x7 is off about 1/8 of an inch. For a lot of projects, that wouldn't be a big deal. But for some projects, you do want to have that exactly on the center. So what I like to do is I take my template, again, make sure it's the right side facing up, you don't have it backwards, and I put a little thin line with a sharp, a black Sharpie, you know, with a micro tip. So I get a nice thin line right on the center at the top and the bottom. Now the center for the horizontal here is fine. It's right on target. But just double check that and make sure. Another thing that you will notice on your template, it has a square and it shows you what I call the sewing field. That's the actual sewing area that this hoop can embroider. It doesn't go all the way to the edges. Your hoops are always going to be larger than the actual sewing field. And the reason being is because the manufacturers have to allow for the embroidery foot to get close, and there's a little width on your embroidery foot, so you don't want that bumping into the hoop, so the hoops have to be bigger than the actual sewing field that can be embroidered. That being the case, what I noticed was that the bottom of this Brother Baby Lock embroidery hoop is about 7/8 of an inch from the bottom edge of the inner hoop. So if you look here, my sewing field will come up about 7/8 of an inch all the way across with my template. Let me show you the template again, because this is how I get my little, this is kind of important. You see the sewing field is way up here, and you'll see the bottom of my inner hoop is below that sewing field. Okay, it's about 7/8 of an inch. As luck would have it, if you look at my towels, they're right about 1 inch above the band, which works out really well. So what I do is, again, I make sure that I have my center lines marked on my hoop. I take a ruler, and then I will draw a center line right on my hoop. So that is the center line that matches up with my template. Now, after you've done this a few times, you might not need to have the center line drawn on your hoop. I just do it because it gives me a little bit better visual. You can line up with the Sharpie marks that you made at the top and the bottom if you want, after you've done this a few times. But at the beginning, I recommend drawing a line on your stabilizer so that you have a nice visual of where the center is for your design. Okay. On towels, what I like to do is I like to use a medium tearaway for the back. I don't like to use a sticky stabilizer because sometimes when the sticky pulls away, it will pull the loops and you'll have loops pulling off of your towel. I don't like to use there was a wet adhesive sticky stabilizer, wet and stick, or I can't remember exactly what it was called. It was called by various names. Love the stabilizer. Don't like it on towels because again, it can pull the loops once the sticky is released. So I like to use a tearaway stabilizer. I like to use a little bit of spray adhesive. Now, you don't need a lot. You just need a little bit. And you shake up the can, just spray a little bit. And then you're going to take your towel, because the purpose of the sticky stabilizer is just to get it from your cutting table over to the machine. It's just to hold things in place that long. It doesn't need to be a permanent stick. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside for a minute. On the towels, I like to pre-wash my towels. Not everybody does. Again, that's a personal preference because I think towels can shrink and I don't want the look of my design to be changed in any way. Make sure that you have the tag at the opposite end of where you're going to embroider. Fold your towel in half with the right sides together, the wrong sides out, whichever way you want to say it. And then you're going to take your hoop that's been pre-hooped, or you've got your stabilizer hooped, medium tearaway stabilizer, and we've got the line here. We've got our true center here because we marked it with our template. And then what I'm going to do is I'll take the band and line the top of the top band with, and I have to stand up so you're going to miss me for a minute. My head's going to get cut off. But you're going to align the top of the top band with the edge of the inner hoop. The inside edge of the inner hoop, because that's a nice straight line. And I'm just going to look in here and make sure that my band is lined up correctly and that my towel is centered over that center line correctly. And then I'm going to flip it open. Okay? And then I gently will take my hand and rub the nap going up, or whichever way the nap is going on your towel, just so it's kind of laying flat in all one direction. Now you'll notice I didn't hoop the towel at all. This is kind of like floating. I've hooped the stabilizer, but not the towel. That's how I keep my towel from popping out of the hoop. The towels are pretty darn thick, and so they have a tendency to want to pop out, especially when you get into the heavier bath towels or bath sheets. You've got a lot of weight. One other thing that I'd like to mention that I forgot to mention when I was doing this is I always hoop. Let me see if I can take this off where you can see it enough. I'm bending it back. I always hoop with the attachment facing my belly button. It's just a habit I've gotten into because we're creatures of habits, and if you create some habits, some good habits, then you won't wonder which end is up, which end is down. I always have this on the Baby Lock Brother machines. Check your particular machine to make sure it kind of does the same thing. But that attachment attaches to the left of your machine, which means the left here is the top edge. So I always know if I have the attached mechanism facing my belly button when I'm hooping, that the top, where the arrow is, there was a little arrow at the top, that's going to be the top of my hoop. So it gives me a little bit of a visual of how to put my fabric in there to make sure that everything's at the top, that I have everything facing at the top. So when I put my template in here and I have the arrow facing up towards the top, I lay it in here and I see, yes, I do in fact have this facing the correct direction. When I first started embroidery, I would hoop sometimes with the mechanism towards my belly button, sometimes it was not, and I would get confused which end was up. That might be just me, but I figured out that I needed to start doing something consistent so that I had it in my head which end was up, and I had less problems of embroidering something upside down. So we've all been there where we've probably embroidered something upside down. Okay, so we've got the medium tearaway on the bottom. We've kind of hooped our towel on top of the inner hoop. The towel's not attached. It just has that little spray adhesive attached. And then I wanted to use a water-soluble stabilizer on top. I could have used another option, which is the heat-away topper, and I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because if you have kind of an open stitch, which is what this Elegant Embossed Alphabet has, it has what they call kind of a knockdown stitch around this B, for example, and it just exposes, there's no stitching where the B itself is, but you have this loose weave stitch out around the edge. The heat away has a tendency to not completely disappear under some of those stitches. So it might have a little bit of sheen, and if that doesn't bother you or it's not a problem in your project, if you have some open dense designs, that's fine. It's going to stay there and it's not going to wash away. So you know that you're not going to have any stitches, or not stitches, but loops popping up on your thread. But if you're a little concerned about some shine on the underside, I would not use this for this particular project. I loved it when I used it on some lettering on a very lush pile that I did recently. It did beautifully. I used this on top and then did some lettering and pulled off most of it and then heated away the excess. So, you know, you just have a couple of options. Different projects call for different types of stabilizers. This one I liked the wash away because these stitches hold down the pile just fine for me. I haven't had any peek through with that. So once you have your water-soluble topper, then what I would do is I would go to my machine and I would do a basting stitch all the way around. And that way the basting stitch is going to hold the towel in place so it doesn't pop out and doesn't move. It's going to hold your topper in place. It's going to hold everything in place for the sewing or embroidery portion of the job. So once it's embroidered, then you're going to have something that looks like this. Through the magic of live video, I went ahead and did this one earlier. You see that it has a basting stitch around there. It has the water soluble. The towel itself is not hooped, but the basting stitch holds everything in place. Then what you're going to do is, let me find my scissors, you're going to rip out your basting stitch, and that comes out pretty darn easily, as you can tell. It's not too difficult because it's a nice long stitch. Now I like to work from the back. I just find it a little bit easier to see, I think, and easier to grab those stitches. Okay. So we've got the basting stitch out and pull off the basting stitch from the top. And I think I've got most of it. There's a little one right there. And, oops, there's a little one. Okay. And then you're going to tear that away. Now in this one, the band was the same color as the towel, so I wanted this to just really blend in. And I'm going to take this out of the hoop. And with this tear away, it just tears away nice and easy. It's not going to pull. Okay. So you have this nice embroidery. Now to get the water soluble off, you could toss this in the laundry and wash it, or you can take, whoops, that fell. Take a spray bottle and spritz some paper towel. And I don't think my iron is hot enough, but you spritz some paper towel, lay it on top, and then, well, I would probably do it with a cotton setting. You're going to iron right on top. I know this is kind of backwards from how I told you how to do it, iron embroidery from the back, but this is, there's always an exception to every rule, isn't there? And you're going to iron the front here, and I don't think my iron was quite hot enough, so I've got some still sticking. But you can see, I'd have to do it another time, but you can see where that is starting to pull off the water soluble. I would just spritz again, probably with a clean towel, because that towel had some water soluble sticky already on it, and I don't want to have that go back onto my project. So again, I would just take and spritz my towel, put that on top, and probably iron until my towel was kind of dry. You know, kind of, you don't want it soppy wet, you just want to spritz it. And come up onto the towel. On this one, I got a little bit too much. So I'm going to spritz the towel because I got a little bit of towel, which is okay because it was getting in there. Okay, so then you just fluff it up. And there it is. I don't know if you can see this in the video, but there it is. Just a nice little subtle embroidery there. Easy peasy to do on the towels. You would just do that with the same with each hoop size. I just line it up with my band with the top of the inner hoop. So here's my inner hoop. Again, I just line it up with that right there, and it's going to stitch about 7/8 of an inch above, right about an inch above, which works out really well for all the different size towels. I think it comes out really nice, and it's very easy to do. You don't have to, it's almost easier, I think, than having to hoop something, to just be able to lay it on top and flip it over. So I'm going to go see if we have any questions. Let me push all this stuff aside and see if we have any questions or if it was pretty clear. So, get my computer here. It looks like we might not have any questions. It looks like everybody understood what I was trying to say. I'll refresh the page just to make absolutely sure. I will post this on Facebook Live, or excuse me, I will post this on YouTube as well as our Pinterest page. So if you're not able to see this right now with us, if you weren't able to be here, then you'll be able to see it later on. I will also keep this on my Facebook page as well. So whichever method you like to view, it'll be there. Lisa said that she loved the tip with the paper towel. That comes in handy. I've used that on a few different projects. It works great on knit t-shirts or, just anywhere where you're, sweatshirts where you're using the water-soluble stabilizer, but you don't want to rewash the whole project. So that's a pretty good tip that I picked up somewhere on the internet. I can't remember exactly where, but it's a good tip. It really works well. Well, I don't see any questions. Everybody seems to have understood what I was trying to convey, so that's good. If you do think of a question, please don't hesitate to write your question in the comments. I do check back to make sure that everybody's questions are answered and nobody's left scratching their head going, what did she mean by that? Because I know that sometimes I go off onto the farm to market road and don't always stay focused like I should. So anyway, I hope to see you next Tuesday. Same place, same time. And until then, have a great one. Bye-bye for now.